Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is the video for the multi-step inequalities notes. The sub should have given you a guided note page, and you're going to follow along with me, and occasionally I will ask the sub to stop the video so that you can work through a problem. Once you work through it, she will start the video again, and you will be able to watch me work through the problem to see if you did it the same way. So here we go. Let's get started. Okay, problem number 1, you will need to add the 16 to your notes, because if you notice on each problem on your notes, I've left off a number so that you can't work ahead of me. So here we go. Here's problem number 1. 2x minus 4 is less than or equal to 16. Now you're going to treat this just like you would an equation. So what would be the first step we would do? We would add 4 to both sides. And then we would end up with 2x is less than or equal to 20. Divide both sides by 2. And x is less than or equal to 10. So we solved it just like an equation, but of course now we have to graph it because it's an inequality. So when you graph it, you should have 0, 10, negative 10. You should have a closed circle above 10, and then you're going to shade to the left. So the answer is x is less than or equal to 10. Okay, I will pause the video for just a second, and you can make sure you have that work copied down for number 1 if you got behind while I was going through it. Okay, problem number 2. We have negative 3x plus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 12. This one's very similar to the last one, but we're going to do this one together because there is one little thing that we have to be able to do that's a little different here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. And we get negative 3x plus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 12 minus 6 is negative 18. Okay, our next step, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides, and we get negative 3x is greater than or equal to negative 18 minus 6 is negative 24. And here's where this problem is going to be a little different. So we are going to divide both sides by negative 3. Now remember when we talked about yesterday that if you multiply or divide both sides of the inequality by a negative, you have to switch the sign? Well, if you notice, we just divided both sides by a negative 3, which means we actually have to flip the sign and make in our final answer less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 8. So as you're doing the multi-step, you also have to remember the rule of when you have to switch the sign. So when you graph this one, we will have 0, 8, negative 8. We'll do a closed circle above the 8, and we'll shade to the left. Okay, we're ready for problem number 3, and if you need the sub to stop the video while you catch up on notes, go ahead and ask her to. Okay, we're going to do one last problem step by step together, and then I'm going to start having you work some out by yourself. Alright, so number 3, we have negative 5 is greater than 10 minus 5x. So first of all, remember, you're solving for the variable x. So this is a positive 10, so we need to subtract 10 from both sides. Negative 5 minus 10 is negative 15, is greater than negative 5x. At this point, we're going to divide both sides by negative 5. Now notice I just divided both sides by a negative, so you should be telling yourself we have to flip the sign in our answer. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 is 3, and we get 3 is less than x. But this is one I call these double flips because we actually have to flip the inequality again, because if you remember I told you it's always good to have the variable on the left side before you graph. So this is going to be x is greater than 3. So just to go back and reiterate, we had to switch the sign from greater than to less than because we divided both sides by a negative. Then we had to go ahead and switch the sign again because our variable wasn't on the left side. So this one we had to switch the sign twice. Okay, And the last thing we have to do is we have to actually graph it. So we are going to have 0, 3, -3, open circle on 3, shade to the right. Okay, so we've done 3 together, so now these following problems, I will have you write the problem down, I'll have the sub pause the video, and you will actually work through it, and when you guys are ready, the sub will start the video again so that you can check your work against mine. Okay, here's problem number 4. We have -3 times the quantity 2x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 4. So if the sub can please pause the video and give you guys a chance to work it out, make sure you solve and graph it, and then come back when you're ready so that you can actually watch me work through it. Okay, so the first step I did was I did the distributive property. Didn't have to switch the sign because I didn't do anything with a negative on both sides of the inequality. Next step, I subtracted 6 from both sides, and I got -6x is greater than or equal to -2. I do not flip the sign because I didn't multiply or divide, I subtracted, so that's not part of the rule. The next step, I divided both sides by -6. Now I did flip the sign because I divided both sides by a negative, so my answer is x is less than or equal to 1/3. Now remember, anytime you have a fraction, when you go to make your number line, you need to tell me what two whole numbers the fraction falls between. So 1/3 falls in between 0 and 1, so I made sure I put the 0 and the 1 on there. And then I'm going to put a closed circle above 1/3. Make sure you know it's closed, and then you're going to shade to the left. Okay, here's problem number 5. -10 plus 2r all divided by -3 is less than or equal to 6. Go ahead and try this and see what you come up with. I will give you a hint that the first step involves multiplication. So if the sub can please pause the video now so that the students can work it out. When they're ready, you can start the video again. Alright, so the first thing you should do on this problem is you should multiply both sides by -3 because we want to get rid of the big fraction. Now, because I'm multiplying to both sides by -3, I do have to flip the sign, so I'm going to make this greater than or equal to, and my -3's on the left side cancel out, and I end up with -10 plus 2r is greater than or equal to -18. Okay, now I'm going to add 10 to both sides, and you get 2r is greater than or equal to -8. Divide both sides by 2. Now I do not flip the sign because it wasn't a negative, so my answer is r is greater than or equal to -4. When I graph it, you put a closed circle on -4 and you shade to the right. Okay, here's problem number 6. M divided by -4 minus 9 is greater than or equal to -2. Again, if the sub can please pause the video and give students a chance to work this out, and you can start it again when they're ready. First thing I did was I added 9 to both sides of the inequality. The next step, I multiplied both sides by -4, and please note that because I multiplied both sides by -4, I flipped my sign. And I came up with m is less than or equal to -28, so I put a closed circle on -28 and I shaded to the left. Okay, problem number 7. -4 is less than 2 times the quantity x minus 6. Okay, again, if the sub will please pause the video and let the students work this out. Alright, this time I just worked out the problem and you can look at my work. I did the distributive property first and got -4 is less than 2x minus 12. I added 12 to both sides and got 8 is less than 2x. I divided both sides by 2 and got 4 is less than x. And then I switched the direction so I could graph it, and x is greater than 4. Open circle on 4, shade to the right. Okay, problem number 8. -13 is less than or equal to -5x minus 3. Alright, again, students, work this problem out, and the sub will pause the video while you are working it out, and then I'll go through the work. Alright, so I added 3 to both sides, and then I divided both sides by -5, which means I had to flip the sign right here. So I got 2 is greater than or equal to x, but then I had to flip the sign again because I need the variable on the left, so x is less than or equal to 2. Oh, and I just realized I actually graphed it wrong, so hopefully you didn't see that. And so your answer should be not this, should actually be a closed circle on 2, shade to the left. I'm sure you guys already caught that in my mistake. Alright, problem number 9. -4 is greater than 6 minus x divided by -4. Again, if you guys will work the problem out, and when you're ready, the sub will start the video again and I'll go over the answer. Alright, so on this one I multiplied both sides by -4, and when I did that you will notice I had to switch the sign so it became less than. Then I subtracted 6 from both sides and got 16 minus 6 is 10. I divided both sides by -1 and I had to actually flip it again, so here is less than, it became greater than. And then I had to flip one more time because the variable was on the wrong side, so it's x is less than -10. So this one actually had 3 times we had to flip the inequality sign. How many of you actually did that correctly? That's probably one of the hardest problems you'll see here in inequalities. Alright, last problem. -6 is less than or equal to 10 minus 2/3 x. Okay, one more time if the sub will pause the video and let students work this out. Alright, on this last problem you had to subtract 10 from both sides and you get -16 is less than or equal to -2/3 x. You have to multiply both sides by 3 over -2, which means you have to flip the sign. So here is flip number 1. And then we had to flip the sign again because the variable was on the wrong side, so we had to flip it and we got x is less than or equal to 24. Okay, this ends the notes video. You should have your guided notes done. Now the sub is going to hand out your homework, which is due tomorrow, and if there's any time left in the period, you can work on your homework. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow.